That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we just recorded this morning a video for us to go through and identify some of these buy low running backs. We're going to do the opposite here. I know we're going to get so much hate for this video, but we've had a lot of success in identifying these players that we are looking to sell high. And a warning, I'm never the guy to come out here and tell you to sell high on some bum player that you're not going to be getting anything for. I'm not coming out here telling you to sell high on Myles Gaskin, knowing that you aren't going to be getting 2 pennies for him. I'm going to be talking about some players that I know people watching this video are excited about. So of course, if you have a case that you think needs to be heard on why you think your player shouldn't be sold high, please go to the comment section. Let me know ASAP. And as I saw real quick, let me pull up our last video to pick some random comments away from so we can give some Fantasy Flock Network hats out here. If you don't know what we're doing, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel to get entered to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat in our next video. And also go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. When you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you actually get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. You support this channel more than you would ever believe. I mean, if you enjoy us making multiple videos every single day, if you enjoy me live streaming every day for 100 days in a row, please, there's nothing more you could do for this channel. My birthday's on Sunday. Go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Deposit $10, get a max deposit bonus, daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. They have a bunch of fun drafts. They have a bunch of fun player props every single week. We've been crushing their player props. And now our comment winners, this one's going to come out from CCS and SS. It says, favorite thing to listen to coming home from class is my friend. Happy that we're providing that entertainment. And our next one coming out from Mike, who says, yeah, it's LaVisca time. I recommend not watching most Jags game until the second half, though. Okay, y'all win. Just send me your physical address through the email address in the description of the video ASAP. And yeah, let's dive into it. And our first running back we are going to be talking about here is going to be everyone's favorite running back of the week, Cordarrelle Patterson. And I know with Patterson here, he is the running back 2. He is the running back 2 right now in fantasy. Yes, I did not misspoke. I mean, this is someone that's been crushing. Literally, Derrick Henry is the only player at the running back position with more fantasy points. Now, with this being said, if you were looking at the underlying metrics here from Cordarrelle Patterson, you are going to see him drastically regress to the mean. Now, keep in mind, this is a player that, yes, you're not selling for pennies on the dollar. Yes, you're going to be asking for a high mark. You can get a cornerstone asset in return. We can package him with the wide receiver to get back an elite wide receiver. I mean, you can go through, sell Patterson, and then also maybe a wide receiver like Tim Patrick, get over to Calvin Ridley, and that's a no-brainer here. And I know he has been great, but if you're looking at this past week, the usage is not sustainable. You're looking at 23 out of 76 snaps. 23 snaps played this week. He had 6 carries and 5 targets. This is very similar to what we have had through the past 2 weeks. Now, I know he's been crushing, and one of the main reasons he has been crushing is based around the idea that the Atlanta Falcons have really had nowhere to go in the passing game. So he comes out, he gets yet another 82 receiving yards. He gets 3 receiving touchdowns. Cordarrelle Patterson, I mean, is crushing the rest of the NFL right now in touchdowns. But what is something that we have been proven right about time and time again? One of the easiest ways you dominate your league mates in fantasy football is understanding what is more productive than actual fantasy points and then using those fantasy points scored to predict more fantasy points in the future. What's more predictive is actually going through and ignoring that touchdown volatility, knowing that touchdowns will go up and down throughout the season. And instead, what we chase is volume. Instead, what we chase is the player that we know is a lock to get 7 targets out of the backfield, to get 10 carries out of the backfield. With Patterson, it's very hard to say that right now. Now, keep in mind, I will be the first person to admit this is a running back that is 100% going to be getting more snaps going forward. He has earned that in this Atlanta Falcons offense. But even projecting him as a starter this week, I would say that in our rankings, he's going to be a mid running back 2. And I know, a lot of people want to have him higher than that. It's just impossible to do so when he's not playing half the snaps for his offense. He's not coming close to playing half the snaps for his offense. And this is coming from someone who hated Mike Davis coming into the year. If you're looking at the underdog drafts, a ton of underdog drafts that we did coming into the year, a couple of those, I took Cordarrelle Patterson in the 18th round. I was the only person drafting Patterson here, knowing that I wanted to do everything that we could to make a bet against Mike Davis. But if Kyle Pitts continues to improve as his rookie season goes on, Kyle Pitts right now is 20 years old. This will be a tight end that continues to get better throughout the season. And then also you get Russell Gage coming back healthy. I think you're going to have more passing game options in this offense where Cordarrelle Patterson's going to see the red zone role that he has slightly dip down. So yes, he has been on fire. Yes, he has been very exciting. And yes, you always get so much hate when you tell someone to go through and sell high on a player that they got from the waiver wire 3 weeks ago. But at the end of the day, I think right now, if we can move him in a package to get a cornerstone asset in return, if we can move him and instead go over and possibly get DeAndre Swift, I think that would be a no-brainer. Now, our next running back, we included him in our sell high video this past week, and we said that he was a must-start running back based on the matchup, and if you didn't want to sell him high now, you could wait until after the week. Jonathan Taylor. Remember what we said a week ago here with Jonathan Taylor. We said that this was going to be a running back that was going to be in a smash spot against the Miami Dolphins, and here we were going to be looking at it saying, well, with Taylor, yes, we definitely want to have him in our starting lineup, but after this week, we need to be going through, and what did we say? We said that DeAndre Swift was going to be in a very tough spot against the Chicago Bears. We needed to make sure after this week, we were going and sending an offer to try to trade away Jonathan Taylor for DeAndre Swift. Another running back that I would like to trade for would be Najee Harris, and right now, there are a couple things working against Taylor, and this is a running back that I really like coming into the season, so trust me, I have him on a lot of my own rosters, looking at him as an elite running back talent, and at the same time, we were projecting the Indianapolis Colts to have one of the best offensive lines coming into the season. Well, the injury to Quentin Nelson, that kind of changes the formula here. And another thing with Jonathan Taylor is I was personally drafting him, operating under the assumption that we were getting a running back that was going to be playing every single snap and potentially only losing some snaps to Nyheim Hines in the passing game, but it wouldn't matter because Taylor was going to be getting enough routes run out of this backfield that the target volume should be there when we know that the Indianapolis Colts quarterback in Carson Wentz will be looking to check the ball down often to the running backs given the lack of talent in the receiving core. Well, here you have Jonathan Taylor, 36 snaps played this week. That is horrendous. I mean, with Taylor here, this is a running back that if there are 71 total snaps available in Indianapolis, you're expecting him to be pushing up there in the 50s. You're expecting 50 to 55 snaps, the rest going to Nyheim Hines and obvious passing down situations. You have Taylor here with 36 snaps, Marlon Mack with 22. Marlon Mack with 22 snaps, Nyheim Hines with 22 himself. We're fine with the Nyheim Hines usage, but for Marlon Mack to be getting snaps here, for Marlon Mack to get 10 carries in this game, to see 8 routes run out of the backfield, this is devastating for Jonathan Taylor to have access to that elite level ceiling. If we're looking at Quentin Nelson, the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL, going on the short-term IR with a high ankle sprain, then all of a sudden you have to be very worried about what we're going to get from the play of this offensive line going forward. And at the same time, if Marlon Mack is getting used in this offense in this way, I think we have to be concerned about what this could mean for the floor and ceiling combination for Jonathan Taylor. Now, I'll say this is not going to be the easiest matchup this next week going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Then he has a smash spot in week 6 against the Houston Texans. Nobody would be surprised if he's a top 5 running back. Then he has the 49ers in week 7, the Titans in week 8, the Jets in week 9, and the Jags in week 10. So maybe the play here is to sell Jonathan Taylor and then we just have him off our roster for the next month or so. And then before he plays the Titans, Jags, Jets, then we can go through and buy low on him. But for now, if you're just looking at the Marlon Mack usage, maybe you can try to spin this as a positive and say, hey, well, Mason, what if they're just using Marlon Mack to try to get him on the field so they can give some of their potential trade partners some tape to watch on Marlon Mack so they can try to get some trades going? Maybe that's an argument you can be making. But still with Taylor, there are way too many red flags for a running back that I love drafting at the end of the first, the beginning of the second. But right now, this is someone you should definitely look to sell high after a strong matchup. Now, our next running back here, made it on our sell high video this past week. And keep in mind, this is someone we said to buy low at the beginning of the season when his value was in an all-time low. But now it has surged back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So with CEH here, remember, we liked buying him at the very beginning of the season as he was a running back seeing every single snap, every single touch out of his backfield. And we were saying, well, even if you don't necessarily believe in the talent, the offense is going to be so damn productive in Kansas City. Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting every single touch out of this backfield. This has to be someone you're going through and valuing highly. It doesn't matter what you think about the talent. Go buy him on the low. And yeah, after the strong performance against the Los Angeles Chargers, I thought that he was then an intriguing player to just go sell and make that immediate profit. I'll say, if you weren't able to sell a week ago, now's the time that you need to sell. You're looking at the underlying numbers here. It's not good for what we're getting with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that running back that we had at the beginning of the season, that was seeing almost every single touch out of his backfield. Now, that's not the case at all anymore. I mean, here he plays 35 out of 67 snaps. So he's playing almost 50% of the snaps in Kansas City. You have Darrell Williams getting 24 of these snaps, Jerick McKinnon getting 8. And then to go along with this, I mean, if you're looking at the usage of the receiving game, I mean, Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon, they combined for 16 routes run out of the backfield. That's the same number as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Then you're also going through and seeing the fact that, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 14 carries to Darrell Williams 10. And this all of a sudden looks like it may be a split backfield. And of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even if you think that it's not a good pick for the Chiefs to take him at the end of the first round of the 2020 draft class, we know that at the end of the day, he's a much more talented running back than what you have with either Darrell Williams or Jerick McKinnon. Keep in mind, this is a player that I like buying low. I understand the bullish case on him. He's playing in a great offense. But if all of a sudden he's a running back that we don't necessarily perceive to be some great talent and he's not getting a ton of usage in the receiving game, and I mean, these secondary running backs in Kansas City are expanding their roles, he's trending in the wrong direction. I mean, this goes right back to what we were saying with Cordarrelle Patterson at the beginning of the video, and that you don't win your fantasy leagues and going, okay, this is how many fantasy points this player had last week. This is how many fantasy points you should have this week. No, it's like the exact opposite. If anything, looking at the fantasy points at the end of the day, that doesn't matter that much. What matters a lot more is looking at how the running back's getting used in his offense and projecting how the offense is going to play out and trying to determine what the efficiency mark should be for that running back based on the volume that he sees. With Clyde Edwards-Helaire here, yes, he's playing in that elite offense, which is why I was intrigued with him at the beginning of the year. But, I mean, take the profit now because I think we're about to get a strong dip from Clyde Edwards-Helaire in his fantasy production if you still get Darrell Williams playing, I mean, literally almost as much as Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. And also, one thing I want to point out is one of those receptions that CEH had. It was one of those shovel passes. I mean, that was where his touchdown came from. It's not necessarily really even a quote-unquote reception. I mean, it's a reception in the stat sheet, but not in real life. That's more so just a handoff. Now, our next running back, just like we said this past week with what you were getting from Jonathan Taylor. He was someone that we wanted to include on our sell high list, especially after a strong matchup. He just had that matchup. Antonio Gibson. Now with Antonio Gibson here, just like Jonathan Taylor, he's someone that I like coming into drafts. This should kind of tell you that I'm not being that biased here. I'm trying to take a step back and go, yes, I like this player beforehand, but we need to reevaluate our process as we're getting more data points coming in. And with Antonio Gibson here, he just played in a great game environment where the Washington football team put up a ridiculous amount of points. And with this being said, Antonio Gibson himself had a productive day for a fantasy standpoint, but not necessarily what we're loving to see underlying the metrics. Now you're seeing 67 potential snaps played here by Antonio Gibson. He plays 37 of those. J.D. McKissic gets 27. You're looking at the amount of targets that these running backs get out of the backfield. I mean, keep in mind, one of the reasons I liked Antonio Gibson going in the second round in drafts this year is we were saying, if he was able to get this J.D. McKissic role away from J.D. McKissic, Antonio Gibson had David Johnson level upside from back whenever David Johnson was that top running back in Arizona. They looked very similar here. Well, that's not happening. J.D. McKissic gets 5 targets. He's clearly still the passing down running back for the Washington football team. So Antonio Gibson does have a strong day with 63 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown at the same time based on a easy matchup he had against the Atlanta Falcons. but you're looking at it saying, well, if he's only getting 14 carries, 2 targets out of the backfield, we're not necessarily expecting the Washington football team to be some great offense going forward. It's more so they had a great matchup this week in what is not going to be presented to them every week against the Atlanta Falcons. So Gibson, going back to what we had in week 3 as well, keep in mind this was a running back that had 73 receiving yards, and you may think that's fantastic, but it was off a screen pass where it was the only reception he had that game. So Antonio Gibson's currently a first and second down running back. I mean, he is a former receiver in college, so I definitely think he has the talent, which is why I wanted to go through and I wanted to bet on him where we could. But the problem is he's just not getting the usage in this offense. I mean, if they just went through and bench J.D. McKissick and let Antonio Gibson play that Christian McCaffrey role, I think that he could do it. And I think he could be a top 3 running back in fantasy. I think Antonio Gibson has it in his range of outcomes to be the number 1 guy in fantasy overall. But the role he has on his offense right now just is not going to allow that to happen. Now, our next running back, we included him on our sell high list last week. We included him on our must bench video last week. And oh my God, he came out crushed yet again. James Conner. Now, James Conner, we're going right back to the well here, saying to sell James Conner and that you're looking at him as a running back that played 33 snaps with a potential of 78. Keep in mind, playing in one of the best offenses in the NFL, if not the best offense in the NFL right now in Arizona. Of course, that's going to make you very excited when you're getting him as a player that has that goal line role. But the problem is Kyler Murray is going to vulture those rushing touchdowns away. I mean, Kyler Murray had double-digit rushing touchdowns back in 2020. This is not something that's automatically getting taken out of Kyler Murray's game. I mean, that's going to continue to happen here with Kyler and with James Conner. I mean, yeah, he gets 18 carries, but he only had 33 snaps out of 78 potential ones. Yeah, it was a tough matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, but a big thing is that you're just seeing way more usage for Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds had 52 snaps compared to James Conner's 33. Chase Edmonds getting all the usage in the receiving game as well. I believe that Chase Edmonds is the more talented running back here. But I think James Conner, after having 4 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks, he is someone that you can potentially look to go through and just sell high on. Now, our next running back will be Leonard Fournette. With Fournette, he looked unbelievable after I told so many people to go through and bench him. I mean, he played 63 out of 77 snaps against the New England Patriots. He was the 3-down running back here. It wasn't even close. He had 20 carries, 5 targets out of the backfield. He was productive with these as well. But I want to just go through and remind some people here. What did we end up seeing with this running back room? Did anything change this week that we didn't have previously that would maybe indicate that Leonard Fournette is going to get a boosted role? Well, was Giovanni Bernard listed as out? Was Giovanni Bernard a running back that just a week ago took the receiving down role away from Leonard Fournette in Tampa Bay before he suffered an injury at the end of the game? Yes, that happened. So what I think we should do here with Fournette is don't go through and sell him right now. Instead, I think that we may ride the hot hand with Leonard Fournette until it looks like you're going to have Giovanni Bernard back in this offense. And when Gio's going to come back in, based on the fact that they want to use Gio on third down, they want to make this a 3-man committee between Fournette, Ronald Jones, and Giovanni Bernard, then we can go through and sell Fournette. I mean, if Gio's going to miss another game here, let me pull up exactly who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to play this week, but I'd imagine that you would actually have Leonard Fournette as a very intriguing player to start as he's coming off a 17-week performance. Yeah, so he's going up against the Dolphins and then the Eagles after this. So with Leonard Fournette, this is a running back that I think we definitely want to go through and plan on starting when we have no Giovanni Bernard. But when Bernard comes back, I mean, don't fool yourself. Please go through and sell Leonard Fournette. Now, a very similar stance we are going to take with our next running back here in James Robinson. Now, James Robinson, I know so many people are excited after he has 2 rushing touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals. Keep in mind, I called James Robinson a must-start running back this past week, considering that he had that fantastic matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, you had no Carlos Hyde, so James Robinson was going to come out here and get the usage. I mean, if we're looking at what you actually had with James Robinson through the first 3 weeks with Carlos Hyde, he was averaging about 10.3 carries per game. This week, with no Carlos Hyde was averaging, I think, about, it was like 6 or 7 carries per game. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I'm no math wizard. James Robinson comes out, bumps that number 8 up to 18 carries in this game. So yeah, James Robinson comes out and he just gets all that usage that Carlos Hyde left behind while he was no longer in this game due to the injury. So if for whatever reason, Carlos Hyde is going to be inactive every single week, if for whatever reason, Urban Meyer just turns into a completely different person and he turns into the average fantasy football player that probably knows James Robinson is significantly better than Carlos Hyde, and he wants to use James Robinson as an every down running back as he did this past week with no Carlos Hyde in the offense, then yes, James Robinson is a fantastic option to go to every single week. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be the case. I will say we're going to have a very similar stance with Leonard Fournette and James Robinson. If it looks like Carlos Hyde's going to miss again, don't sell James Robinson, as he'll crush again, especially since he's going up against the Tennessee Titans this week. Then he has the Miami Dolphins the week after. I think we wait. We ride out James Robinson. You start him every single week until it looks like Carlos Hyde's going to come back. And then we try to sell James Robinson at a high point. We try to pivot over, get Najee Harris, try to go get someone like DeAndre Swift. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please make sure you go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Let's get to 10,000. Let's show them how strong the flock is. Nothing would mean more for me for my birthday. If you enjoy these videos, if you enjoy these live streams, let's get to 10,000. That way we can get that Fantasy Flock meetup going. We can get that giveaway going. Go to that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoy this video, and I really hope y'all have a great day.